much.
Oh, you're welcome.
All of you guys in the back, there's one more seat up here. Somebody grab it. You should have a handout. It says positively encouraging evaluations, and it has a lot of blank places on the front that you should be filling in as you listen, and an empty space on the entire back that you can use to take whatever notes you'd like. As Don said, my name is Danni Babik, Distinguished Toastmaster, past district governor, Toastmaster-aholic. I joined Big D in 2001, never looked back. So, yeah, I do have other things that I do on Thursday night that made it difficult. I want all of you, except the guests and the brand new members, all of you, remember your very first speech in Toastmasters. We call that the icebreaker. It's the time that we throw you in the deep end of the pool. Think back to that speech, how nervous you were, how much you prepared or didn't prepare for it, how you thought everybody was looking at you and judging you as you gave your speech, and then somebody was going to evaluate you. You sat back in your chair and thought, oh man, they're going to, I forgot this, I forgot that, I screwed up there, oh, they'll be able to tell this, and oh, they're going to say all these bad things about me. And then the evaluator got up there and shared what they loved about your speech, what they enjoyed, what you did well. Wow, that's unique. There is no place else where you give a speech and then somebody tells you everything you did well. Evaluations are the magic that make Toastmasters work. Once you get all that positive feedback, then you're open, and then you get constructive suggestions for how to improve. In a good club, those are the kind of evaluations you get. In a bad club, a club that doesn't give good, positive, encouraging, motivating, helpful evaluations, that's a club that's not serving the members, that's a club that's not helping each of us out, that's a club that struggles. Big D is not that kind of club. I'm going to share with you what evaluations are not, because that's just as important as what an evaluation is. I'm going to share what evaluations are, and then the steps that you can take to give a positively helpful, encouraging evaluation. Now, those of us who've been in Toastmasters for a while have had an opportunity to hear a bad evaluation. What's a bad evaluation you've heard? What's something that's a symptom of a bad evaluation, Don?
You know, I got up here and I'd just like to say that this was just wow. I mean, I couldn't, I this and I that, and I.
Very narcissistic. Kevin, I know you've got some great examples for me. Brief example of a bad evaluation.
I'm just going to repeat everything that you said in your speech. You said point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5, and that's what you said in your speech, and that is the end of my evaluation.
You'll also hear speeches in which all you get is a good stuff. Wow, you were so good. You were amazing. I don't have anything to suggest to you. Well, that's not very helpful, is it? You'll sometimes get evaluations that are excessively harsh. Now, if you're an advanced speaker, you appreciate that, but if you're a guest or a new member, you are going to get freaked out by hearing that language. If you haven't heard a bad evaluation yet, as you go around in Toastmasters, you will hear bad evaluations, whitewashes, harsh evaluations, repeating the entire speech. Those aren't helpful. Those aren't magical. So what is an evaluation not? As Don said, it's not about you. It's not about you. Now the speech may touch you. You may remember, oh man, I loved your speech because I remember that time that I went on vacation to Las Vegas. That doesn't matter. It's not about you. It's about the speaker and their speech and how they delivered it. Afterwards, you can sit down and chat with them all you want about the topic, but don't get distracted by bringing up your own stories. You only have 2 to 3 minutes for guests and newer members. An evaluation is 2 to 3 minutes. Make that time count. An evaluation is also not about the speech's subject. And this can be really confusing because we get distracted by the content of the speech, the topic of the speech, especially a political speech or something about something that we really love. If someone gave a speech about preserving old houses, I'd be all over that. But don't get distracted about that subject. Don't respond with stories about that subject and feedback about that subject. We're here to learn how to speak well. Every speech you give to achieve certain objectives, to learn something about giving a speech. That's what the focus is on. How was the speech delivered? How well did that speech meet the objectives of that speech project? Not the topic. Again, meet with the speaker afterwards and share your enthusiasm for it, or your counterpoint, as the case may be. And it is not about, and this is really important, it's not about what was done wrong. You don't want to look at it with the negative mindset. You don't want to watch for the bad things, for things that were done wrong. We want to watch with a positive focus. So what are evaluations? If that's what they aren't, what are they? They are positive, helpful, motivating, encouraging. Positive, helpful, motivating, encouraging. Someone suggested I rearrange those to make nice acronyms so I can remember them, but I already know them, so there you go. Because the me isn't really a good acronym. Evaluations are about what you enjoy. When you give a speech, you want to know, what do people think? Did they like it? Was it effective? Did I touch them? Did they agree with me? Were they interested? It's about what worked. What you enjoyed in the speech. What you liked. Your opinion. Some people hate to give evaluations because it's just my opinion. Your opinion is valuable. That's why we speak. We want to know what people thought, what they liked in that speech. Evaluations are about what makes the speech effective. What made it work? What helped get the point across? What connected to you in the audience? What grabbed your attention, intrigued you, perplexed you, excited you? What worked? What made that connection? And then a good evaluation is about what would have made that speech better. What would have taken it to the next level? What would have made it more effective? What would have made it more enjoyable? What would have made it better? So how do you give a positive, encouraging, helpful, motivating evaluation? Ideally, when you're assigned as an evaluator, in the ideal world, this almost never happens, but it really is cool if it does. You'd see who your speaker is, and before the meeting, you'd get in touch with them. Go over what project they are, that you're their evaluator. Make sure they're bringing their manual to the meeting, because you're going to give a written evaluation in that manual. If you can't meet them ahead of time, at the meeting, before the meeting, or at the break, get together with your speaker and get their manual. And every speech should be from a manual. Zach and I have something going about that, but we're working on it. It's in the Tuesday Club too. Friends, don't let friends give non-manual speeches.
Yeah.
My speech right now is being evaluated. Every speech that you give in Toastmasters should be given to learn something about giving a speech. About how to use your body, how to use the right words, how to organize it, how to persuade your audience. Every speech is given for a reason. And then when the evaluation is given that addresses those reasons, you learn, your evaluator learns, and everyone else in the club learns how to do a speech that works with words, that has vocal variety, that gets to a point. Get the manual, talk with the person, find out, is there something extra that you want me to look at besides the objectives? Do you want me to share that or not when I'm called on to read out the objectives? And then get ready to take your notes. Your notes start the moment they are introduced. How do they walk up to the front? What is their appearance? Are they sloppy? Are they dressed a little bit more sharply? These are things you can comment on. Did they confidently shake the Toastmaster's hand? Did the Toastmaster give the speech title? Did they provide a speech title to the Toastmaster? Is it a good speech title? Is it a title that makes you want to hear the speech? When they get up to the lectern, it's not a podium, it's a lectern. John Sessions talking that. When they get up to the lectern, do they immediately start talking? Do they say something not connected to their speech? Do they stand for a moment and collect themselves and then start their speech? How do they start their speech? Do they start their speech with a question? Always a great opening because it attracts our attention. Do they start with a quote? Mike Weibel is the master of fabulous quotes to start a speech. Do they start with a short anecdote or story or joke that's related to the speech? How do they start that speech? Did they grab your attention? What do they do as they give the speech that you like? What are they doing with their body, with their arms, with their hands, with their eyes, with their mouth, with their entire expression? What do you like? You're watching for that. One method I like to use, and this is totally up to you, on my sheet of paper I have a column of things that I like. Oh, that was a great phrase. Oh man, that was funny. I gotta mention how good their humor is. On the other side, I have a column for, oh, that was a great spot where that was so funny, they should have paused so we could laugh. That's a suggestion I'll give. Oh man, they're stuck behind the lectern, but you can see they've got so much energy. I wish they'd step out in front so we could see their gestures. That's something that would go here. They have a great smile as they're speaking. You can hear that in their positive voice. That goes on the plus side. Their voice is deep and reaches all the way to the back. Or their voice is soft. What help can I give them to convince them to speak more loud? So the whole time you're speaking, you're writing down notes. Is the transition working? Is everything going smoothly? Does this make sense? Are they giving me a roadmap, telling me where they're going, giving me the support, where we've been? How are they closing the speech? Are they closing it with something related to the opening? Are they closing it with another quote, an appropriate quote, a callback? You're writing notes on everything. And then how do they finish? Do they finish with the way most of us think of finishing? Thank you. The speaker doesn't have to thank us, we're thanking them. Or do they finish with a strong statement, question, or something that just leaves you thinking? And they turn to say, Mr. Toastmaster. So you're writing notes on all of this. When the notes are all written, the speech is over, now you have to take all those notes and make them into your own 2 to 3 minute speech. Start looking always, everything you're looking at, you're always thinking positive, helpful, motivating, encouraging. Start with a lot of things that you liked. A lot of little things, many little things is what should be filled in. Start with many little things done well. You had fantastic eye contact. Even though you were reading from notes, it didn't detract because we could see your expression. I loved your gestures. I loved how you moved around. I loved your humor. I loved your dry, sardonic wit. All the little different things that were done well. But save one. Save one big thing. You just want to share little things. Why do you do that? To make them receptive. Just like I said at the beginning, we're waiting to hear everything we did wrong. And when you start out with all these things that you like, all these things that were done well, the speaker is more receptive, is open, begins to relax, is not in that fight or flight, is saying, oh, they genuinely, imagine that, they liked some parts of my speech. As you're giving all these again, what are you thinking? Positive, helpful, encouraging, motivating. Share then, at least, if you can, at least 2 things that could be better. But don't say, I wish you hadn't moved around as much. Give them a specific suggestion. I wish when you reference the story from your childhood, you'd moved over here, and then when you moved forward in time, you went over to this side, and that would help us separate it. And then when you referenced what happened before, you could just point, and we'd know, because the location is associated. For someone who paces a lot, give this a try, because I saw you have so much energy. Stand with your feet at a 45-degree angle, with your feet like this, and it's hard to move from that position. And that will help you stay in one place and take all that energy and put it in your voice and your motion, your hands. And when you have a point in the speech where it's appropriate to move over to that space, take that stance again. The best suggestion I ever heard, I love to share this, was in a division contest, a speech contest. The test speech, the person that gave the speech that all of the contestants evaluated, talked about adopting a baby. And it was a good speech, it was moving, there wasn't a lot of animation to it. So this gentleman came up, contestant came up to give her feedback, and he said, when you picked up that baby, when you went and picked up that baby, show us that you picked up that baby. Show us that you have her in your arms and look, she's smiling. That is a specific suggestion that would have elevated the speech. That's what you want to try and find when you give your suggestions. A specific suggestion. And it's your opinion. They may not adopt it, they may not incorporate it in any way, but it gets them thinking about ways to improve the speech. And limit it. Limit these that you give 1, 2, maybe 3 on an advanced speaker. And the notes you write, you can write down more. And ideally, you're going to meet with that speaker afterwards, give them their manual back, and you can talk a little bit more. But you don't want to overload them. Pick a few things, especially for a newer speaker, things that they'll be working on in the next few speech projects. And that gives them something to focus on as they enter those next projects. And every time you're speaking, everything you're saying, think positive, helpful, motivating, encouraging. I swear I've got those memorized. So specific suggestions for improvement. What are, for experience, Steve, I'm going to interrupt you. What's a great specific suggestion for improvement that you've heard from evaluation or that you've gotten?
One of the key things that I've learned is to gather yourself at the lectern before you even begin, so you give the audience a chance to turn their focus on you, and you get a chance to drop your blood pressure.
You've been in for a while, I remember you. What's one of the great suggestions that you've gotten in an evaluation?
Just to
things you can, when people have to use notes, and we will on our first speeches, that's totally acceptable. There are things you can suggest to have their notes become better. When you make your notes, print them in large type on the top 2/3 of a page of paper, very large. Minimize them, work on making them just phrases or keywords. And when you're up at the lectern, set them to the side and just slide the pages across. Don't flip them so we can tell you've got notes, just slide them across as you move from page to page. Maybe put your notes on index cards and have them in your hand, small cards that are in your hand. If you want to be really classy, have the backs of the index cards match what you're wearing. No kidding. It's very cool. Summarize your speech in just a few words and set it on the front table ahead of you, so that if you absolutely get freaked out, you can look. There's memorization tricks that you can share as a suggestion. I noticed there was a part where it looked like you had lost your place. These are different ways you can memorize. You can tie part of your speech to each location in the room, so as you move your eyes across the room, you remember those spaces, those places. There are a lot of tricks that you will hear and that you know. And what you're doing is providing your knowledge to help that speaker, and in turn, when they evaluate you, they'll share tidbits that you hadn't thought of. A lot of this advice you'll hear over and over again. You do too much with your hands, they're always moving. Instead of saying it that way, say, I was a little distracted by how active your hands were. You must have some Italian in your kidney. Work to keep your hands at your side. Even to start off with, grab at your pants or your pockets. Don't jingle, but just grab there to remind yourself, my hands need to be at my sides. That way, when they do come up, they have more impact. So make note, all the suggestions that you get, and you share these. Will they work well for someone? And always think positive, helpful, encouraging, motivating. The very last part, or the penultimate, good word, Madam Premier didn't make note of penultimate. Finish with a brief note. See, I went ahead. After suggestions, bring up what you liked best. What was absolutely the coolest bit about their presentation. And you do this for a number of reasons. The sandwich method, you start with praise, you give suggestions, you end with praise. Also, if it's something you really like, you're very authentic. You can really say, God, I really loved that. That was so good. And the more authentic and believable you are, the more that person will start to believe in their own qualities, in their own abilities. This is the part, the ultimate part, the last part. You need to finish your evaluation with a brief summary. And we don't often hear this in the clubs because we get so distracted giving advice that we run out of time. But for competition, and that's why I also handed out the front of the judge form for evaluation contest. You'll notice there isn't a lot on there, but one of them is summary. Brief, concise, encouraging. The summary should reiterate really quickly what you said. I loved your smile. I loved your energy and enthusiasm. You had so many funny bits in there. Work on gaining enough confidence to step out in front of the lectern so that you see more of your gestures. And those are in some of the next projects in the book. But don't ever lose that amazing organization, how you took us right through from that opening all the way through to the closing. That was so powerful. And please don't end your evaluation with, I can't wait to hear your next speech. Especially in competition. If your closing statement can be related to the speech is about music, Incorporate these suggestions and your next speech will be a veritable symphony. The speech was about the truth behind a blue moon. If you do these, I'm pretty sure you're going to be giving a fabulous speech more often than once in a blue moon. Now that kind of trickery isn't needed at the typical club level, but for competition, especially at the higher levels, that's great. That leaves the speaker with the singer, leaves the audience with a memory, and it leaves the judges with noticing you. True? Oh, no. Sorry. And always be thinking positive, powerful, motivating, encouraging. And let's address great. That was great. You had some great gestures. You had some great humor. That was really good. Thesaurus.com gives you the following synonyms for great. Able, absolute, aces, adept, admirable, adroit, awesome, best, brutal, complete, consummate, delightful, dynamite, egregious, excellent, exceptional, expert, fab, fantastic, fine, first class, first rate, hellacious, marvelous, masterly, number one, out of sight, out of this world, outstanding, perfect, positive, proficient, skillful, superb, super duper, surpassing, terrific, transcendent, tremendous, wonderful. Make a note of a few of those and try and incorporate those in your next evaluation. It makes it refreshing for the listener and it gives you a little bit more variety as well. So what have you learned? You've learned that evaluations are not about you, not about what was done wrong. Evaluations are positive, helpful, motivating, encouraging, and that is right off of that judge's report. The best evaluations have solid, specific suggestions for improvement. And especially in competition, do not forget the brief summary. Don't introduce anything new. If you've forgotten something, if you didn't get to cover something, that's okay. You can still go talk to them afterwards and share the information. It doesn't all have to be in the verbal evaluation. That's why you do a verbal and a written. As you continue in Toastmasters, like I've been, I started in 2001, you'll start to see as you gain confidence, as you gain the ability to be an effective communicator, as you gain leadership skills, which your club officers are exhibiting, you start to realize how amazing it is to be able to help others experience that same thing. And evaluations are a core part of that. Giving someone feedback, telling them what you loved and how they can be even better is one of the best ways you can contribute to anyone's growth. It's also a heck of a lot of fun to get to visit clubs and do things. Now, I am positive that you may have a few questions. So I'll take just a couple minutes to answer any questions that you have about evaluations, about competing and about evaluations. You can answer everything. Go with that.
What were the three categories you said you were on page?
Oh, I do. What I liked, suggestions for improvement, and I just do the two. And that's a good question. One thing I like to, I'll write it all down. And the way evaluations in competition work now, you get one piece of paper to write your notes on. Every contestant gets this piece of paper. I don't agree with it, but that's how it is. So you don't have a lot of space to rewrite anything. So what I'll do is I'll write everything down, and then as I'm organizing, I'll put numbers. I'll do this first, this second, this third. I'll segue to that, do this, and then write brief summary in big letters at the bottom. One additional bit about contests. It doesn't matter how clever, how funny, how dramatic, how fabulous you are in your delivery of your evaluation. Look at that ballot. It's not on there. It is the content of your evaluation that matters. One more question?
On the judging one, thank you for showing us this. Have you set out a framework of how you're gonna, like you can create a framework for a speech, create a framework for your, for what you're gonna say, like opening, closing, transitions, or body language? Do you do, or just is the columns the framework? Or do you?
The column is pretty much the framework, and there are the three things you like, 2 suggestions, one thing I really liked, that's a good way to do it, or just think high, praise, encourage, praise, instruct, encourage. There are different methods of actually giving the evaluation. The one thing to really focus on any evaluation is, again, those 4 words: positive, encouraging, helpful, motivating. Your evaluation is the most valuable thing that person will get that evening. It's going to make a big difference in their experience, their growth, and your own. Evaluations are the magic of Toastmasters, and I encourage you, always be magical. Mr.